Today on the Bandrew Says podcast, we're going to be analyzing the Face app stealing all of your data and information, Apple funding some exclusive podcasts, and a whole lot more, so go ahead and stick around. Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to episode 170 Heaven of the BSP. My name is Bandrew. This is what I says. Like always, there are timestamps in the show notes of everything that I talk about. If you want a different version of the show, audio or video, bandrewsays.com, and if you want other podcasts, geeksrising.com. Let's start with the trendy story this last week, the Face app. We are all absolutely boned and doomed. Over the last week, an app came into the zeitgeist. It is called the Face app, and what this does is it allows you to age yourself or gender swap yourself, and the thing that sets it apart is it does it very well. It's very convincing, these renderings of what you will look like in 80 years or what you would look like as a male or female. It's really well done, but this raised a lot of privacy concerns after a couple of days of this fad being trending on Twitter and all of the like, because it came to light that this is a Russian-owned company, and the privacy policy stated that they could use your username and likeness for commercial purposes. This, of course, scared a lot of people, but to be fair, it's probably not that different from the privacy policy and end-user license agreement as other apps that we use, so it's not crazy to see this, right? Well, first I want to address something because I saw that narrative out there. There is a big difference between privacy and security, and let me elaborate on that. Let's say that there are two apps that you have installed on your phone that capture the exact same data from you and offer you the exact same service. One is from Google, and the other is from this theoretical Joe Schmo's app service. You may be thinking, well, they're both offering the same service and they're both collecting the same information. It's gonna be fine. But that's where I would say that you are wrong. Google, because they are such a large corporation and they have a lot of governmental regulations being placed against them, likely have far superior ways of protecting their servers against intrusion and data extraction. Meaning the data that's stored on Google's servers is far less likely to be stolen by a nefarious person or persons for whatever reason they may want. So although you are getting the same service and they are gathering the same data from you, I would argue that your data is far more secure with one company as opposed to the other because the scales are different and the regulations and the scrutiny that each of those companies' security goes through is different as well. Now, there were also concerns that the app was uploading every single photo that was stored on your phone when you upload a single photo, but somebody named Will Straffic monitored his network traffic and did not find any uploading of this data, so that appears to be just a false claim and just completely untrue. Now I want to address something that I saw quite frequently over the last week, where people were getting kind of defensive against us wet blankets who were calling out our concerns that we had with this app and with the privacy policy. Listen, that's a callback. I get it. I know your life is so much more fulfilled now that you have 10,000 likes on a post on Twitter because you shared a photo of what you would look like when you were 80. But I don't care how much more fulfilled and how much more joyful your life is because you got that. This is a prime time to remind people that there is always a price that you pay for using an app that you are not paying for. I have said this probably 1,000,001 times at this point. If you are not paying for a service or a product, you are the product. There is no denying that. Companies don't exist to not make money. They're not just saying, I am going to pay for these servers and pay for the development out of the goodness of my heart. They are going to make money somehow. And if you are not paying for it, they are gathering your data, they are doing something with your data and making money off of it. And yes, I get it. You have given the same information, if not more information, to the likes of Facebook, Google, Twitter, Snapchat, or any other app that you are using. But do you know what happened because all of us wet blankets were calling this out? We had people tweeting and posting articles saying, "Are you insane? Look at this privacy policy. Look at the information and look at the rights that you are giving up." And then people inevitably replied with, "Well, Facebook takes just as much data from you. Did you know that? It's totally fine. Facebook takes all your data too. It's okay." Now, all of us paranoid conspiracy theorist nuts are fully aware that Facebook takes way too much data, but there are likely plenty of people who had no idea what information Facebook is collecting. The moms, the pops, the grandmas who use Facebook just to look at pictures of their grandkids. They may not be aware of this, but now those people who are somehow unaware of the data and the privacy that they were foregoing to download and use these free services are going to be able to make much more informed decisions about what applications they use because now they are more aware of what is going on. So I will continue to be a wet blanket when it comes to these types of things and continue to make stupid jokes on Twitter such as, "The Russian government thanks you for your data contribution through the Face app." Do I really think the Russian government is stealing your face information? No! It's a joke. It's intended to elicit a response and force people to think about what apps they are using. I don't really think the Russian government is releasing a face morphing app to gain some kind of election meddling in the US? Are you nuts? I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I am not that crazy. Now, if you'll allow me to be even more of a wet blanket and take advantage of this privacy scare, let me put out a reminder to everybody. You should never upload anybody else's information, anybody else's photos without their permission. Do you know what this means? You should never give an application access to your contacts book unless your friends, everybody in your contact book, gives you authorization to do that. Think about that. How many times has an app said, "Can we access your contacts book to find which friends have the app so you can friend them?" Well, guess what you're doing when you click accept? You are giving these random applications, which you have not vetted, access to your friends' names, your friends' birthdays, your friends' physical addresses, your friends' phone numbers, your friends' email addresses. So do not do this because you are not just finding out which of my friends can I friend on this new social media app. You are giving some random app developer access to all of your friends' very personal data, which I don't know if you're aware of this, is a very serious privacy violation. I don't want to give any of my friends my personal information anymore because I know people don't care. They just say, "Sure, go ahead and look at my contacts." Now, with all of that being said, let me put out my recurring reminder whenever this type of story comes out. Do not have 1,000 apps on your phone. You should only have the apps that you actively use installed on your phone, on your computer, and you should always have them updated to ensure you have the latest security patches. And you should also actually consider reading some of those privacy policies or end user license agreements so you know what you're actually giving up by using that service. I, for one, made the decision after reading some of the privacy policies of Facebook to not have any of the Facebook properties, any of the Facebook apps on my phone. Yes, this means no WhatsApp, no Facebook pages, no Facebook, no Instagram, no nothing, because they are all owned by Facebook. I don't have any of them on my phone because it's not worth it, in my opinion. I do, however, give Google all of my data by having YouTube and the YouTube Studio app installed on my phone because those are things that I use for my, not company, but for my channel, for something that I get a lot of value out of. So that's what it comes down to. It is a value proposition. You need to do a cost-benefit analysis. Is giving up all this information worth it for the service that I am getting out of this app? And no, that your phone has a lot of information on you that you may not be considering. You may not think about it. There is a lot of very personal information there. So just think about that and think about what information you're giving up when you upload photos of your friend, when you give apps access to your contacts. Don't just say sure to everything. That is moronic. Next story, Apple is funding original podcasts. According to Bloomberg's report, quote, Apple plans to fund original podcasts that would be exclusive to its audio service, increasing its investment in the industry to keep competitors like Spotify and Stitcher at bay. Executives at the company have reached out to media companies and their representatives to discuss buying exclusive rights to podcasts. End quote. And there's really no other information here. It is all very preliminary and scarce reporting at this point with no real specifics. I am going to start by throwing out my nonsensical theory. I think that Apple is going to be acquiring podcasts and shows that can be converted from podcasts into TV series. That way they can supplement the content that's available on Apple TV Plus, kind of just making it a little bit easier on themselves. But that is my nonsensical theory. Since this announcement, I have heard people and seen people tweeting that this is going to be detrimental to independent podcasters. I disagree completely. I don't think this is going to affect you at all. If anything, Apple is likely going to have a premium shows section on the browse page or a premium show button at the bottom of the app. I don't think that Apple is going to start de-ranking shows in lieu of their own shows. And even if they were to do that, how many shows do you think Apple is going to be purchasing? Do you think that all of the shows they purchase are going to be in the same niche as you? Apple is not going to purchase a dozen or 100 shows in the creator news analysis niche, pushing my show further down the list when people search creator news analysis. It is not going to affect you. But moreover, if there truly is a podcast discovery problem, which is a very popular narrative, I don't know if you've heard, podcasts are terrible because there's a podcast discovery problem. If there truly is a discovery problem, you're already not being found. So what's going to change? That's what I don't understand. The answer is probably nothing. Nothing is going to change. You will still have to put in the same amount of work to gain and grow your audience, the same as you do today. You're going to be fine as an independent podcaster. This is not going to destroy podcasting. But on the other hand, as far as Apple, I don't think they're going to be fine. I don't think they will view this launch as a success, at least by their metrics. You can mark my words, put it in your calendar a year from now. Podcast Plus will be the most popular of all premium podcast networks or services. That's my guess. But this is only going to be due to Apple fanboys and fangirls saying, sure, I'll give Apple another $10 a month. It's not going to be because it's a widely adopted thing. It's not going to be the general public that says, oh, this is amazing, I've been waiting for this. It's going to be people who just love Apple and want to spend more money, so they go ahead and sign up for it thinking this is the best of the best. But by Apple's metrics, this will be a failure, just like News Plus is somewhat of a failure. On the latest Podcasters Roundtable, I don't recall who exactly said this, but they brought up a really good point that premium podcasting solves no problem. When you hear premium podcasting, you frequently hear people say we're trying to be the Netflix of podcasting. But the point they brought up here is Netflix actually solved a problem. Late fees and a pass to rent as many DVDs as you could per month for a fraction of the cost of renting from Blockbuster. Premium podcasting doesn't really do anything. They're just giving you the option to pay for more expensive to produce shows. But there are already plenty of really, really high quality shows out there that are completely free. So this is likely why we haven't seen any huge successes in the premium podcast market. It just doesn't solve a problem. So why would people say, sure, I'll give you some money for something that I can get for free? It makes zero sense. If you want to read more, I will link the very scarce article from Bloomberg in the show notes down below. And what do you think? Do you think Apple's premium podcasting service is going to destroy or harm the independent podcaster? Or do you think it's going to have zero effect? Let me know in the comments. Now let's jump to what you had to say. And the first two comments come from Stefan and Roger. They are essentially asking if on this podcast critique segment that I'm going to be launching soon, if I will critique non-English audio. Here's the thing, I would be more than happy to review and critique non-English speaking podcasts, but you all know that I am a paranoid, insane person, so let me play out a scenario for you, which is the first thing that came to mind in my conspiratorial head. I don't speak Spanish, Swedish, Arabic, or any other languages. So what if somebody sent in a clip from their podcast that contained some less than savory content in a foreign language to me? To my knowledge, I would just be critiquing the audio quality of that podcast. But in secret, I could be broadcasting some nefarious deep state call to action or something racist or sexist or just in general awful. So because I am actually going to be broadcasting the audio samples on my show, I would need to have everything vetted by somebody who speaks the language that the podcast is in, who is not associated with the podcast that's being submitted for review. Therefore, unfortunately, for the time being, I need to exhibit some form of responsibility for the first time in my life, and I will only be reviewing or critiquing English spoken word. Now, if a foreign podcast producer or host wants to record a short sample in English using their exact same podcast setup and processing and send that in, I would be more than happy to review and critique that. But in order to avoid any kind of potential issues that I am unaware of, where I am broadcasting something that is less than savory, I will only be accepting English audio. Thank you very much for the input there, and great question. Appreciate both of you. Next comment comes from Memento Ruin. What extension arm are you using for the SM7B? Memento, very good question. On the microphone arm right now with the SM7B, I am using something called the OnStage QK-2B Quick Release Microphone Clip Adapter. Yes, this does function as an extender for the SM7B, so I don't have any issues with the cable getting bungled up on the boom arm, which is really nice, but it is also a quick release thing. So it allows me to quickly switch out microphones without having to unscrew the microphone from the boom arm or any of that. I just purchased a bunch of these quick release things, and I have the female adapter installed on a bunch of microphone mounts, so I don't have to waste the time pulling on and off the microphone threading and all of that. That may not be a benefit for a lot of people, but given how frequently I change out my microphone, that saves me a lot of time and a lot of pain in my butt. So there you go. I will go ahead and throw an affiliate link for this quick release thing in these show notes, because what is my new motto? Say it with me. Monetize everything. I'm disgusting. I hate myself. Next comment comes from Stargazer1331. Out of curiosity, would you ever stream an episode of the podcast live? Stargazer, I already replied to you in the comments, but I am going to broadcast it here as well. That is an interesting question, and for a while I was considering doing live streams of the podcast, and I was actually working towards that. Every week, when I went to record, I would try to get through the episode without any mistakes and without having to do any kind of editing. What this led to is what I call Black Sunday. There was a Sunday where I went to record and I kept screwing up, and I restarted the recording of the podcast around 20 times. I almost quit podcasting on that Black Sunday. So because of that, I came to the realization that doing this show live would just not be the best thing for myself or for the people who listen to it. Mainly because I try to provide the information in as succinct a way as possible without too much filler or fluff. And I do a lot of preparation leading up to the recording and a lot of editing. And I mean a lot of editing to get to the final product. And I think the final product does deliver on what I set out to do where I deliver the information as quickly as possible without too much wasted time. If I did go and do it live, I think it would just be an absolute mess that would not be a good experience for the viewers who are viewing it live or the listeners who are downloading it in their podcatcher. Now, if I did a different type of show that was more just strictly opinion-driven and less dense, perhaps, then yeah, I could absolutely do that live and just chat and just shoot with everybody who's there live. But for this type of show, I don't think live is as conducive as I would want it to be because I'm just not as good as I should be. That's it. Now let's jump to my favorite part of the show, the Ask Bandrew segment. All right. If y'all got any questions, you can send them in to askbandrew@gmail.com, or you can send in a voicemail recording at SpeakPipe, which is installed on bandrewsays.com as well as bandrewscott.com. Send those in. I will answer them on an upcoming episode of the podcast. First email comes from Jabali. He says, "Hello, thanks for your reviews. I always watch you, but I have an important question. I have a channel like Top 5s, and I had a microphone before, and I'm wondering to upgrade my setup, FiFine K670 versus BM800 versus BM700 for YouTube videos like Top 5's channel. Which one should I buy? Thank you for your help." Jabali, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but I know I am not. I apologize for butchering your name. Thank you for the email. It sounds like you don't plan on buying a USB audio interface. You just ask which of those 3 microphones you should buy. Therefore, if these are the only 3 options you have, I hate to say it, but I am going to recommend the FiFine K670. Why? Because it is a USB microphone. The BM800 and BM700 are XLR microphones, and they come with a terrible XLR to 3.5 millimeter cable. What does that lead you to think? I can plug these microphones directly into my motherboard. Wrong. On my recent article, which you can find at podcast.mic.reviews, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there is a least favorite option in each category. Under the entry level or budget option, my least favorite option is any microphone connected directly to your 3.5 millimeter microphone input on your motherboard. Why? Because it is trash. It sounds absolutely horrendous. It is unusable. So based on that, you don't give me too much information. It sounds to me like you do not have a USB audio interface or a USB mixer, so you would just be plugging the 700 or 800 into your motherboard. And no. Do not do that. Do not do that. That is an audio sin. Go with the USB microphone, even though it is not my favorite. K670 would be my choice. Best of luck. What is it, Jabali? Hope that helps. Second email comes from Andre, and it is somewhat lengthy, so I am going to chop it down a little bit. He says, I record using Zoom and have my Audio-Technica 2100, and so far the recordings are great. Now I am considering adding video to the podcast. I believe I can have more places to share the podcast, and audio only makes it hard to be discovered. I won't disagree with you there. The problem is I have no idea how to record the remote guest's video and mine individually. Almost like multi-track recording, but multi-track video recording. If this is a thing, I don't know. Zoom puts them both together. Hangouts outputs an automatic transition file between the people on the podcast, and that's not something I want. Ideally, I want to have individual files so that I can have all the leverage and control of what gets published later. Do you know of any software that can help me achieve this? Cheers from a Portuguese guy living in Berlin, Andre. Andre, that is amazing that you're traveling and living in a different country. You're living the dream, man. That is something I have always wanted to do. But very, very great question. I have never personally done this for a final podcast, a video podcast, but I did look into this briefly, looking for exactly what you're talking about. And there is one option that I found for Windows. It is called vMix, and they have many different tiers ranging from I think $100 up to what I am going to tell you. The two options that do what you're looking for are vMix 4K and vMix Pro. I will link the breakdown of all of the comparisons of the different tiers in the show notes, but these tiers cost $700 or $1,200 respectively. But it does come with their own call-in system for you to have people call into, and it has multi-quarter, which does capture the raw audio and raw video files of each participant, as well as capturing the final vMix output. The vMix output would be similar to the Google Hangouts, but then it stores the raw video and audio so you can mix it in post if you would like. Then the other option, I have not looked into this at all, would be a Skypeosaurus, where you have multiple laptops with something installed on them like Skype. You could use OBS on that second computer to capture the audio and video while in full screen, and then send the audio out of that computer into your main computer, and then you'd have to create a mix minus to send back to your Skype machine. It seems like a nightmare, which is why I never went down that route, but it does seem like it is possible. And if you get a couple of Chromebooks or cheap used laptops, that may actually work and be a little bit cheaper than $700 or $1,200 for the vMix software. Now, you may even be able to accomplish this on a single computer with some clever software and routing like Voicemeeter Banana. Ugh, what an awful piece of software, but it is free. But if you're doing too much processing and encoding and routing and all of that, it may be a bit too much for a single computer, which is why I think multi-computer Skypeosaurus things are what is popular for doing multiple people calling into a single show. I hope that helped a little bit. Best of luck, Andre. And feel free to send in an email when you decide on what you want to go with, because I do not have too much experience here, and I am sure that a lot of people listening would love to hear what you landed on. Is vMix the best option in your research or anything like that? Thanks so much. Third email comes from Tim. He says, not sure if you subscribe to Pro Sound News Magazine, but the June issue had a couple of interesting articles on podcasting that I thought you might enjoy. It seems that podcasting is being accepted more and more as mainstream media from the pro audio standpoint. Cool. On to the actual question. I have been stewing on this for a while. I am pretty sure that podcasting will eventually replace AM talk radio, but most podcasting tends to be more national versus local. I think the strength of local talk is that people find out what's happening in their city. What are your thoughts? Cheers, Tim. Tim, I think you are absolutely spot on here, and I actually produced a local focused show for a year for somebody else. It was great. It helped build a community, and it was a lot of fun. And I think we will likely see more of this if podcasters can get over a couple of different things. First one being analytics. The curse of the podcaster, the analytics section of your podcast host. Curse you, analytics! And also, we would have to overcome the desire to compare ourselves to others. The reason I say that is by focusing your show on a small city or a small town, that will severely limit your potential audience. What that means, it will be much more difficult to develop a large audience. With a smaller audience and less potential for growth, that limits the ability to draw in advertisers, unless you can find some local advertisers who are willing to put in some money. But because it would be more difficult to bring in money, that would mean the people who are producing the podcast, this would not be their primary job, which would then mean it would potentially not be as well researched or produced as some other alternatives, such as AM talk radio and local TV news. Now, I personally would love to see a local show for my area where they talk about the local politicians, the drama, the policies they're voting for and against, what kind of news is going on here, what awful crap is happening, what legislation is being passed, what roads are going to be torn up. All of that stuff. I would absolutely love that, but I don't know if anybody is going to be willing to put in the time, effort, and money to produce it, knowing that it's not going to be a big moneymaker. You're not going to see many returns in a show that focuses on maybe a city of 1 million people, but only 10,000 of them know what a podcast is or listen to podcasts or even go into search for podcasts. Most podcasting is word of mouth. So you would have to somehow, I guess you would have to do local advertising, put it on the bus benches and the trains and all of that stuff. Hey, listen to my podcast about Los Angeles. That's a big city, so bad example. But I love the idea, Tim. I just don't know if we'll see that quite yet. And lastly, we got a voice submission from Donald, our lovely friend from across the pond. Take it away, Don.
Bandrew Scott. This is Donald Wonder of the Voice of Mail podcast. Thank you for answering my video question a couple of months ago, I think. I got a question for you that is related to media, because I know you're a horror fan. You've spoken about some interesting horror flicks recently. Chucky, Child's Play. What do you think of the situation where the original creator is doing his own thing with the original series and they're still continuing to do this reboot, which is different? I've watched the most recent Chucky movies. I think the last one was 2017. I think it was Curse of Chucky. It was okay, left open-ended. I thought they were actually going to reboot the whole series when they started this new one, not knowing that the actual creator is still doing the continuation of the original series, and this new one where Mark Hamill is doing the Chucky voice is actually a whole new thing. Ridiculous. I know sometimes franchises just split paths and there's two different lanes, but what do you think of the original Chucky series? Are you still watching it? Are you all caught up? Did you watch the reboot movie? What did you think of it? And yeah, I'm going to message you every once in a while with some really cool horror recommendations, especially one that I'll get into maybe next week. But anyway, thanks for all the tips. Love the reviews, the microphones, all the other stuff. I will catch you later. And yeah, we'll keep the voicemails coming. Peace.
Donald Wonder, absolute mad lad, absolute legend. If you want to check out Donald's show, Voice of Mail, it's a show where their audience sends in their opinions on news stories and asks them questions. You can check it out at voiceofmail.com. That is M-A-I-L, not M-A-L-E, so he is not a misogynist. Good on you, Donald. Appreciate you. Now, as far as the question, my thoughts on Chucky and Child's Play and the splitting off and creating of two cinematic universes, that sounds stupid. That sounds so incredibly stupid, and it will do nothing but confuse their audience. Well, what series am I watching now? I don't know. It's stupid. My thoughts on Chucky, though, and Child's Play, I may have seen Child's Play 20, 25 years ago, but I don't remember it. I did recently pick up the 7-film series, and I plan on working through it over the next couple of months. But I don't think I have seen all of them. I think I have only seen the original. So that is going to be something that I share my thoughts on the upcoming episodes. But as far as the original creator continuing the 7-film series, so 8 and 9, and then some other director creating a spin-off with the exact same characters, just different stories, I don't know if that's going to work because it seems like this is not standalone films. It seems like a continuous story. If it was to be something like a Monster of the Week series, like the X-Files did, I think that could work. Monster of the Week films would be perfectly fine, but every film has its monster. It's Chucky. You can't really do that when the main character is the Monster of the Week. I don't think it's going to work out. But Donald, thank you so much for sending that in. Great voicemail submission, and thank you for putting me on to SpeakPipe. I stole that idea from you. And now let's jump to TV and movies of the week. If you did not get enough of that with talking about Chucky, and we are taking a departure from the weekly horror films, and I have 2 for you this week, and they are both comedies, kind of. First one, Observe and Report. Did you ever watch Paul Blart Mall Cop and think, I would love a story exploring a mall cop's desire for power and control without the whole, I'm fat, I fell down, pretty girl doesn't like me type humor? Well, Observe and Report is for you. This is your cup of tea. Was that enough of a sales pitch for you? Seth Rogen plays a mall cop, just like Paul Blart, mall cop, who wants to join the police force. He loves guns. The other people he works with love guns. And his life is an absolute disaster and mess, but he's so delusional that he doesn't realize it. And you also have the woman that he is in love with, played by Anna Faris, who plays the most 2009-ish stuck-up pretty girl mall rat, who is the most hateable character I may have ever seen on film. She really is the worst. But you also have his partner, Michael Pena, who brings in some lowbrow humor for dummies like myself to laugh at. It is just all around an incredible movie. At least in this genre, it leans very far to the dark comedy. I wouldn't go so far to call it a black comedy. It is not that dark, but it is leaning very heavily dark. And I think this is probably my favorite Seth Rogen role I have ever seen. So if you're interested in delusional mall cops who love guns and love power, right up your alley. You're going to really, really enjoy this. Absolute blast to watch. The second film of the week, Empire Records. A classic, a legendary classic. This is another film I don't think I've seen in maybe 15 years, but on rewatching this, the film just spoke to me. It felt like a film made specifically for me because I think it captures the 90s music environment, the 90s music culture almost perfectly. It's about a group of misfits who work at a music store, and it covers all the drama that comes along with so many different personalities being crammed together in a work environment. And on top of that, the soundtrack is incredible because it's 90s good music. And I suppose the thing that really stuck out to me here is there are very few films that are able to elicit this type of response from me, but it made me want to be in this world and work in that record shop. That is a very rare thing for me to feel when watching a film, saying, I want to be there. I want to be a part of that world. It reminded me of some of the record shops I used to frequent in my last city, where you would go in and there would be music playing over the speakers. There would be your pretentious people behind the counter saying, huh, you like that? Huh, you're an idiot. I love that type of environment, and it made me want to work there, and it looks like a really cool building as well. It just, the chaos, the misfits, the fun, and the pretentiousness. Amazing film if you are into music, if you are into records, if you're into 90s culture. This captures all of it amazingly well, and I loved the film 10 times more than I remember it. Now, one personal thing, reminder, if you want me to critique your English spoken word podcast, sorry for now, that's what I'm sticking to, go ahead and send that to askbandrew@gmail.com, and in the subject, put audio critique, include a link to your podcast or your YouTube video, and I am going to be starting this series, this segment of the show, on episode 80. That is going to wrap up for today. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. If you want to check out more, just go head over to bandrewscott.com. I have articles on how to podcast, best microphones, how to find the right microphone. I share when my guest spots are going to be and all of that. Links to all my other projects, bandrewscott.com. Send in your audio questions, send in your video questions, send in your text-based questions. Talk to you next week. Bye.
This has been a Geeks Rising production, your executive producer of Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.